Welcome to Occam's Razor. This is Blazing Cat for Fridays, where we do a cold read-through of the best news aggregate for an unobscured eye on current events. I'd like to thank BCCF for posting these live streams and for his tireless commitment to publishing a site every day, coming up on 20 years in February. As you may be aware, Blazing Cat Fur has just had a fundraiser recently, so please support his site. You may have missed my show last Friday because I got my dead code too late to BCCF. I was quite busy, actually, putting a lot of other stuff together. And please, I would say after the live stream, please join us for the NAP, the no answer period, but Parliament is not sitting this week. After the long weekend, Parliament is banded for the long week so that the members can go back home and deal with their constituents, which is nice. And of course, that has given us a lot of time to go back and review committees and stuff. And that has given me the opportunity to, let's see if we can do this here. Let's do a quick fade. I'm still here. There we go. As you can see, I've been putting up quite a few videos this week, some standalones instead of broadcasting the show. Here we have the most stupidly dangerous man in Canada, followed by Captain Chaos himself here, Mr. Carnage, who will finish off Canada. The short little compilation videos anyways, help yourselves. Let's get right on to it and get right into Blazing Cat Fur's website. There we go. Still the greatest. Oh, hey, but we do a quick refresh here. Because purposefully stayed away from the site because this is a cold read-through. And come on, refresh. There we go. Excellent. Little link for me. We'll just wait for this to go in. I have a new provider. They're a little slower. There we go. Now, while we wait for the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot to load, let's look down to this other picture here. Militias and mafias, how the Gaza has unraveled since the ceasefire. Oh, indeed. You know what? How about we just click on this X link here, and we will let that load. Oh, no, that just took us out of the site. Now, of course, we'll have to go back. No problemo. Still the greatest commercial ever filmed. Let's see what this is.
Some drugs. The first one. Hey kid, would you like some drugs? The first one is free.
Want to check out my van? I got some candy.
Hey kid, want to join our gang and spray paint under a bridge?
No! Bug off, man! I'm going roller skating! all people that has never roller skated.
I'm Brad Armstrong, owner of Roller Kingdom in Reno, Nevada, keeping your kids off the streets since 1999.
I say no to drugs. I say no to gangs.
I say no to unplanned pregnancy.
I say no to meth. I say no to reefer. I say yes to roller skating.
Man, this book.
Well, that brings back memories. Yes, there was a roller rink in the towns whenever that thing exploded back in the early 80s. Well, for us up in northern Quebec, they would take the rinks and they would shut them down for the summer and then let us roller skate in them. But the rinks are like straight cement, and with all of us using our roller skates in there was this fine cement dust just permeating the entire thing. I'm sure we're all short and alive by about 20 years breathing in that dust and that thing. And of course, this is way before inline skates. But, you know, there were no computers back then, so people needed things to keep themselves entertained. All right, Arnie's page is loaded back up. Let's get back over to his site. With a slow transition, there we go. Militias and mafias, how the Gaza was unraveling since the ceasefire. Yes, I'm sure you've probably seen the footage if you've looked for it, and I don't like to watch those things because it kind of triggers me. I don't need to see that stuff. Just the fact that they are doing it, but of course, right after the ceasefire, was Hamas doing? Rounding up all their supposed enemies and then pew-pewing them in the back of the head. Because those are the people that you made a deal with. Not long before he was shot dead by one of the gangs of Gaza, Saleh al-Jafari had identified the Hamas internal security forces whose tentacles were spreading out across the territory, wearing black baseball caps embroidered with gold and carrying assault rifles as they were stationed from Gaza City in the north to Khan Yunis in the south. The patrols were assigned that Hamas was ready to crush any existential and internal threat. 3 days after posting images of the security forces, Jafari, a journalist, was killed by an armed militia. Caught in the crossfires, Hamas wrought revenge on gangs that dared to challenge it. A few days after that came the first public executions of men that Hamas claimed were plotting to overthrow the militant group that has ruled by fear since 2007. Indeed. You know, it's well, I guess the one thing that has resulted from destroying Gaza is that Hamas no longer has rooftops to throw homosexuals from. They kill them. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Watch as Hamilton School Board trustee Debrina Dahab goes OFF, calling schools racist and run like prisons. Is this what our education system has come to? Well, I do cover that in one of my videos where we there are 45 communist goals that were set out and recorded in 1963 in Congress in the United States by a congressman. I can't remember his name, but I have the link in my video. I only covered the first 20 of the 25 goals, communist goals, slightly modified, because when they first put into Congress in 1963, they were specific to how the Soviet Union would infiltrate and conquer the West from within, specifically the United States. Now, of course, they modified these from straight Marxism to cultural Marxism. You will see that, we're pretty well almost completely there, along with the other bills that they have tabled recently. But one of the things that has been completely captured is the education system. They are pumping out an army of small little cultural Marxists, and it's only a matter of years before we have our own mountain of skulls in Canada if this kind of behavior is allowed to continue. Let's listen to this video. Or not. Let's play it.
This leads us into a conversation about how schools don't then just mirror prisons. They're actually part of the same network of discipline that we see employed in prisons, right? And this manifests in regular times of schools, how we monitor behaviors in schools, how performance is ranked in schools, how schools correct deviation or what they deem a deviation. And I think it's important to think about where all of this comes from. I think there's often this perception that education is a neutral site of knowledge dissemination, right? And so This perception aims to render education in the West as an objective truth rather than something that is constructed and deeply shaped by social, political, and cultural forces, namely white supremacy, colonialism, capitalism, and all of this creates a very particular experience for children. So education in this context becomes a necessary tool that the state can rely on to facilitate white supremacy, to facilitate capitalism, to facilitate capital production and settler colonialism. And how this manifests in the day-to-day is through curriculum, teaching methodologies, education policy.
Okay, that's enough of that. First clue that something's wrong here is they're all wearing masks. Why are they wearing masks? Are they all sick? No, they're not sick. They think that the masks actually protect them. Okay, first off, so they have no clue what science is. Secondly, they're going on about cultural Marxism. It's already been inculcated into the classrooms, into the schools. Just ask yourself this. When you went to school as a child, did you know the politics of your teacher? I didn't know the politics of all my elementary teachers, and I did not know the politics of all my high school teachers. The fact today is that kids are told what their politics mean to me. They are training young little cultural Marxists by putting this ideology. Instead of just sticking to the education, they have to put in all this diversity, equity, inclusion, cultural Marxism into the education system. And this is what they're talking about. And of course, they have also been indoctrinated in this. So it's self-professing indoctrination, and it's also a self-licking ice cream cone of misery. Because they will never be happy, because it's all about continuing to deconstruct every single thing, because you're never happy with anything. The whole victim-oppressor narrative never stops with this gang. Ottawa's gun buyback amnesty period extended to October 2026. Oh, yes. Instead of admitting failure, let's just keep kicking the can down the road, and hopefully with all the other things that the Liberals are doing that are destroying Canada, Canadians won't notice this another boondoggle of stupidity that the most dangerous man in Canada has been putting forward, which is the title of my last video, specifically about Gary. Gary, our safety minister. Public Safety Canada has announced that the amnesty period for owners of recently designated prohibited firearms has been extended by another year to October 30, 2026. The Federal Department said on October 15 that licensed owners and businesses who possess prohibited assault-style firearms must dispose of or deactivate them before the amnesty period expires, or risk criminal liability for the illegal possession of prohibited firearms. Let's not forget, folks, that these were made illegal by secret orders in council behind closed doors, just illegally making 2,500 arms illegal because they thought that they were scary assault-style weapons, including a 22 caliber flamethrower. And they were stupid enough because they are such an anti-gun gang nutbag of disposable feminine products on that other side of the aisle that they don't even know how weapons work. And they said, oh, once we confiscate these guns, we'll send them to Ukraine so they can fight the Russians. Yeah, with hunting rifles, bolt-action hunting rifles, shotguns. I guess if you're doing trench clearing, but might even help, I guess, fend off a few drones. And then a 22 caliber flanker. Well, I guess one of the problems that soldiers have experienced in trenches are rats. And I guess if, it's much better to fire off 22 caliber ammunition, I guess. Have to carry around another weapon. Thank you, Canada, for sending me these 22 caliber rifles. I can fight rats in my trench. Instead of looking up to see if I'm going to be taken out by another Russian drone. It's insane, absolutely insane. And of course, we know that Gary was caught on tape. Right, he was recorded by his tenant because his tenant was talking to him. He was upset that oh my God, you're going to confiscate my weapons, and he was telling him, "Oh, don't worry, man. It's just a sham. We need to do this to keep Quebec happy. We know it's actually not going to do anything." And then of course he was caught on tape. Then he keeps denying that he was caught on tape. He denied it in Parliament. He denied it even in committee. This guy's a lying scumbag. AFD. hits record 40% in New Saxony and Alt-Polen. Well, that must be driving the lefties crazy in Germany. The right-wing alternative for Deutschland, AfD, has crossed the 40% mark in regional poll for the first time, an unprecedented result that signals a major political shift. Yeah, well, whoever's been writing this hasn't been paying attention to the major political shift in Europe for years now. According to a survey conducted by the INSA for the news portal NIAS, the AfD would achieve 40% if state elections in Saxony-Anhalt were held this Sunday. This represents a 10-point increase since June and the highest level ever recorded for the party in any German state. The governing CDU follows a distant 26%, losing 8 points, while the left party stagnates at 11%. 11%. The SPD and the left-wing nationalist Bundesschara, I say Wagenknecht? Oh, I don't really a lot of German. BSW is what the party initials are. Stand at 6% each. The Greens and the Liberal FDP would fail to enter Parliament with only 3%. Yeah, well, people have had enough. They've seen the left-wing lunacy and what it has done to their countries. Uncontrolled mass immigration, uncontrolled mass spending, constant authoritarian bills and rules one after another, destruction of freedom of speech, incarcerating political prisoners, canceling elections because you don't like the result. This is the direction that Europe has been going in for the past 10 years. Everybody thinks that Europe is like another bastion of democracy. It is not. It is still in a huge power struggle between the remaining elite families that ruled Europe for centuries and the people who've had enough. And the last exploit that those elites did was try to inundate their own nations with people from other countries to dilute the population, to create an uncontrollable economic collapse so that they could stay on top of the food pyramid, the power pyramid, because they have a lot of wealth stored. We can see what they're doing. They did it 100 years ago. They're doing it again. Except the only difference between then and now is that they don't have complete control over all the media. But they're trying. They're trying. Let's see here. FinTrack imposes more than 600K penalty on First Nations Bank of Canada. Oh, really? Are you telling me there's been a bit of boondoggery going on in native banks? Ottawa, Canada's anti-money laundering agency, has imposed a penalty of more than $600,000 on First Nations Bank of Canada for violations under the country's anti-money laundering laws. FinTrack imposed an administrative penalty of $601,139.80 on September 22 for 5 violations found during a compliance examination. I don't even know why they deal with zero now in a sense because, we still have nickels. I guess only a matter of time before those go too. The regulator says the bank failed to submit the suspicious transaction reports in 31% of the case files it reviewed, where there were reasonable grounds to suspect transactions were related to money laundering or terrorist activity financing. Yep. Canada, as we've said often since the Liberals have been in, and of course, I can't remember the journalist's name at the moment, but he's been writing about the massive amounts of money laundering, drug trafficking, human trafficking that has been allowed to occur under this liberal government. And that only tells me one thing, is that everybody's in on it. Everybody's in on the correct who's in a power position in this country, and slowly, bit by bit, it's getting changed, right? So the fact that an actual government agency was able to bring this against one of our taker institutions in Canada is surprising. Every once in a while, I guess stopwatch is right twice a day. Journalists. I'm a journalist. Come on. Does your mouse do that too? Every time you use a little wheel thing, you got to roll it down and it goes backwards instead? Maybe it's just my cheap mouse. So journalism, hard at work. Okay, well, let's open that new tab and we'll go down to the next story while that loads, and then we'll go back to that one. Regulator warns Canada's green power push could strain the electricity grid. No duff. No duff indeed. That's exactly what everyone who was warning about the green scam was telling you would happen if you converted over to unsustainable green energy. Especially green energy that doesn't work all the time and that has a high failure rate and at the end of its lifespan, which is rather short compared to traditional energy systems, has no real disposable method, creating a mountain of toxic waste. Canada may face major electricity reliability challenges as utilities work to meet federal climate targets. The Canada Energy Regulator warned Wednesday, and there is a problem right there. The federal climate targets. We are doing it to ourselves. Wait, why would we have these climate targets? Let me see. What is Prime Minister Mark Carney heavily invested in? Is he not also under indictment by the Department of Justice for his VFAN's global green scam cartel? Isn't he also heavily invested in all these green scam technologies? Isn't that weird that Canada's policies and purchasing is all geared towards making Mark Carney's portfolio richer? Interesting. Canada may face major electricity reliability challenges because of this. Well, a BlackRock report says in its report, ensuring future power grid reliability, the agency said rising demand from electric vehicles, heat pumps, and other technologies could stretch the country's power system to its limits. No shit, Sherlock. Right? And of course, this is mentioned every time the crazy far lefties come up with their green scams. And everything's like, oh, we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars building trees in Canada for electric vehicles. And we're like, dude, our electric grid can't even sustain an average of 3 electric vehicles per city block on constant recharge. The grid would collapse, but you want everyone to own these little golf carts. Wonderful. Well, let's get to the story here about I'm a Journalist. Don't you hate it when the mainstream media gives you half the story? Indeed, don't we hate that? Of course, now, from blogging to videos on YouTube, the way social media has expanded over the years, in some ways it's kind of like half a blessing because it now forces us to go in and gives us material to come up with stories. Say, that massive white structure with the tower and the dome in the foreground sure looks like some sort of religious building. Could that be a detail? No, couldn't be relevant. Now, what does it say underneath this picture? Durham Regional Police are investigating the death of a man who was found with obvious signs of trauma at Simcoe and McGregor Streets in Oshawa on Thursday afternoon. No further details are immediately available. I see where you're going with this story. Update. Nothing to do with my email on CP24 Professional Journal. Brian Aguilar. It's the death of a man found with signs of trauma near Oshawa Mosque deemed a homicide. Oh, I see this story. It's been getting bigger. Let's see next year. Diversity, strength. You know the drill. Mike Greaves says he walks past his Cat's Cafe in Surrey, BC every day, and he's sad to see the restaurant owned by Indian entertainer Kapil Sharma has been shot up for the 3rd time. Yeah, well, that's Canada today with drive-bys, uncontrolled crime, a two-tier justice system that treats people differently, depending on where you're from, your culture, your skin color, your beliefs. But guaranteed that if you're a law-abiding white Christian in Canada, you will get the full force of the law on anything you do because everyone else is the victim of your microaggressions and constant racism of existence. Sorry, folks, that's what DEI is. And that's what the liberals have sold, and that's what they are educating your children in school to become. Democrats and the media turned racism into a joke. Now they're mad people privately mock it. Oh, they're even madder because they don't have a clue how to meme. The left doesn't understand humor, right? That's the biggest problem. I mean, what's the first people that they went after in Canada for human rights tribunals? Yeah, human rights. Human rights has no humor either. They went after comedians, right? And now comedians can't really earn a living because they have to watch what they say, right? Because of this. And the worst censorship of all is the self-censorship. And that's what these clowns did to us, right? They're forcing everybody to self-censor because they are emotional children, damaged beyond belief, who can't deal with anyone disagreeing with them. They have to have a fit. They have to throw themselves on the ground, kicking and screaming. And barring that, they get violent. It's just the way they've been trained. their brains are broken. They need help, but they've been told that anyone who offers them help is an evil racist. So he said it's a self-defeating prophecy for them. Of all the matters that are urgent to the average person right now, young Republicans making racist jokes in private must rank somewhere between what would be good for breakfast 2 weeks from now and does Taylor Swift fart in front of Travis? And those things are still about 280 notches below was the dress blue and black or white and gold. Yeah, the Democrats and the lefties, they can't meme and they have no sense of humor. Now that there's peace, what were those Palestinian protests really about? Seeing as the protests are still happening, we know exactly what they were about. All you have to do is go to the Mass Covenant and read it, and you will see what the Palestinians are about. My God, look at the picture. Look at the picture on their flag right here. See this entire little sliver of land right here? Gaza is right here. Egypt is right there. Most of this other area here is Israel. It didn't start that way, but in 1948, when they were given Israel, the following day, 5 Arab nations attacked it without warning to destroy Israel, and it convinced all the Arabs that the Jews who had been living and building the area up since 1880s, they convinced them all to turn against their neighbors, and they said, "Join us in our fight, and we will kill all the Jews with you." And so the armies went in, but they forgot the number one logistics of the military is that you need roads, and if you don't have roads, you need track vehicles, and they didn't have a lot of track vehicles, so the roads were all of a sudden clogged by refugees who were leaving, and other people that wanted to join their fight would split everything down. And of course, they killed 2 out of every 10 Jews. And as a result, Israel and its existential war, and it wasn't an existential war, their very first war, the following day after being formed, they won that war, and then over the years, they kept getting attacked and kept getting more territory. Now, what do these crazy fartards call them? They call that day Nakba Day, the tragedy, the catastrophe day. Yeah, the catastrophe for them is that they didn't manage to kill all the Jews. And that's why, here, on their little banner is the entire region is theirs. Right? Because they want to displace, kill, remove all the Jews. And that's their song, from the river to the sea. It is not about peace. Right? They are projecting what they are actually doing. They are calling for this actual word right here in this picture. But yet they accuse the others of doing it. And of course, they're still marching to the streets now. Yeah. And of course, our country has been captured by this green menace, obviously because of the two-tier justice system, where you have these protesters, these Palestinian protesters, being let off for doing far worse than what happened during the Freedom Convoy. Yeah, we see what you're doing, justice system. The law is an ass. October 13, 2025 marks a milestone in the Middle East. Following President Trump's facilitation of a peace deal and ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, hostages held by Hamas have been released and returned to their families after 2 years of captivity in exchange for Palestinian terrorist prisoners. The cessation of hostilities between Israel and Gaza has brought relief to millions affected by the conflict. One might expect such a development to unite people across the political spectrum in celebration, but the response has been mixed. Yeah, response has been, we didn't kill all the Jews. That's what the response has been. We see what you're doing. Carney's military spending binge will leave Canadians worse off and divided. Well, I wouldn't say it's much of a binge other than a huge purchase that we don't need. And the binge has already happened. They've already given away all our crap to the Ukrainians. They've already given away billions, far more than what they spend on the military, to the Ukraine. I mean, far more than what they spend on the military on a yearly basis they gave to Ukraine. Far more than what I guess they spend on the military the past 3 years they've given to Ukraine in only 1 year. But this spending binge that they want right now, they want to spend $1 billion. Half of that is on a HIRMS system. I've actually seen that system deployed in Afghanistan. On one of my trips out to the ammo dump to drop off and pick up some stuff for our aircraft. Typical at that time, we would get incoming missile, and it's Lockheed Martin. And who owns a lot of shares in Lockheed Martin? Yeah, this guy. Right here. This guy with the eyes, right in the picture. Well, it's kind of hard for him. 91% of his portfolio is in the United States. He's heavily invested in all kinds of things, and practically every single political decision that he makes affects his portfolio and makes it richer. And, because he lied. Remember, he lied about his portfolio. He says, oh, I only have some cash and some property, only to find out that he has 103 businesses, over 530 share options in various businesses. He's made $23 million estimated in increase in his wealth since he joined the government with the decisions that he's made because of Brookfield. Because all the decisions that involve Brookfield, coming decisions that involve Brookfield, like the small nuclear reactor, Westinghouse. Oh yeah, he's invested in that too. Or how about anything else? Just mention it. There's a link. And by the way, if you want to know all those links, Moose on a Loose, go watch his channel. He's got a link to a page that he has set up. He's got a nice big chart. He's got it all set up on Excel. And he is continuing to add to it every single business, every single lie, every single political connection to the people that he hires and puts into positions, what their connection was to him in the past. And they're just bleeding. They're just spending like there's no freaking tomorrow. Oh, let me give you a position for something that we don't need in Calgary, and I'll pay you twice what I paid. Here's a nice little gift for you, right? Well, how about we have a fentanyl czar that can't do anything about fentanyl? These guys, I'm telling you, it's all about a big show, so they can just keep stealing from the treasury and printing the money. I think Canadian dollar is going to hit about 61 cents. Today, if not by next week, compared to the U.S. dollar. And that's all because of these guys. Let's get back to the story. Carney's military spending binge will leave Canadians worse off and divided at last. Finally, we're seeing some real nation-building by Prime Minister Mark Carney. I'm referring, of course, to his decision to extend the National School Lunch Program. Yes, the National School Lunch Program. Did a video about that, too. This is an excellent way to assure Canadian school children who represent the future of our country aren't drifting off to sleep in class because they're hungry. An astounding 2.5 million Canadian children live in a food insecure household. That's the story from the Star. Who else? Right? Celebrating poverty. That's what they're doing. Oh, yay! It's outstanding, outstanding that our parents can feed their kids. So you know what? Instead of making the society better, the economy better by maybe getting rid of all of these disastrous bills that we put in, driving industry out of the country, making everybody lose their jobs and turn to the government for a handout, instead of doing that, how about we just do more handouts? Yay! Yay, us! Yes, my lunch video, if you go watch it, it's absolutely ridiculous when you have a minister on the Liberal side saying that responding to the Conservatives asking about one of their members who come to us as a senior, they can barely afford to eat. And when asked this minister, he goes on about the school lunch program. So she's like, excuse me? That's my senior I'm talking about. Did you just tell my senior that you're going to fix the problem with the school lunch program? And then what was his response? Oh, he's all shaky. Oh my God, you called me out. And then he starts rattling off all these other existing benefits that have already been there, as if they're brand new. Because that's all these people do. They rebox everything that they previously announced and make it sound brand new. Yeah. And they don't have an original idea of themselves. What did they steal this week? Oh, yes, the jail not bail idea. That the Conservatives actually put together a good bill to put through that was turned down. Meanwhile, these guys, he just comes off rolling at the tip of his tongue. Oh, I'll give you a jail not bail. Yeah, they're going to have to prove they're innocent. Turning our justice system on its head? Are they insane? I just noticed I had my desktop audio on, so there's a lot of echoing there. Right, so what I heard him announce this week was when you are arrested, you will be considered guilty and have to prove your innocence, which is contrary to our justice system. Now, of course, yes, he's going after really bad folks, but that's how they do it, right? They create a problem that is so bad in our society that the only thing that they can do is put in more authoritarian rules. Well, we got to do something, right? Yeah, so there's this whole thing about being innocent first. Let's just get rid of that. and we'll just deem you guilty, and then you have to prove your innocence. Yeah, straight to jail. No bail. Leave it to the liberals to grab a good idea and make it worse. Hook-handed terror Iman fights toilet jihad in prison. Ooh, that's a friendly little place. Kind of looks like, for the floor, looks a lot like one of the rooms in my elementary school when up in northern Quebec. How many Islamic toilets is a Muslim terrorist entitled to? At least 2? What? That's the ruling by a U.S. federal judge in a long-running saga of UK Muslim terror imam locked up in Colorado prison who called for murdering non-Muslims and wants those same non-Muslims to tend to the purity of his nether regions so he can properly pray to Allah. Well, I would just, whenever people like that ask for those rights, I would say that how about we look at where your culture is in charge on the planet and see what kind of rights you give to your prisoners there. Maybe we'll give you those rights. How about we do that? Yes. How about we give these theocrat positive people theocratic consideration, right? I wonder how the prisons are run in Iran. How about we run his prison cell the same way? That's only fair, right? Because it's a theocratic state, and they're dealing with their own co-religionists. So obviously they must be treating their co-religionists properly because they too are Muslim. So why not follow that example? I don't see why this is so hard. The betrayal of Samuel Paty. Homage à Samuel Paty. 5 years ago, Europe is appeasing an Islamist intolerance that led to his beheading. Yes, that's right. Far left, always minimizes crime. Oh, it's not that bad. It's only a little crime. Until it turns into a beheading. 5 years ago today, in a quiet Parisian suburb in broad daylight, teacher Samuel Paty was beheaded. His killer, Abdullah Anzarov, a self-described servant of Allah, had hoped had hoped to send a message to the infidel Macron. I executed one of your hellhounds, he boasted on social media, his post accompanied by a photo of Paty's severed head. Right, well, what was the reaction in that? They just let more of them into the country. So, there's that. It's time to talk. Carney rules out hitting the U.S. with retaliatory tariffs. Oh, what? Do you think Canadians have finally suffered enough after 6 months on your ridiculous, stupid, failed straight state craftsmanship? It's our largest trading partner. What do we do? Like $1 trillion a year? 85% of our trade is with the United States. And what does he do? Alienates them, makes them the pariah, makes them the subject of Canadians' fear so that people would vote for them in the last election. Just like those certain funny mustache men following Germans in the 1930s, right? Oh, you have to hate those people. Free, right? And that's exactly what he did. And they're getting ready to do it again. Rumors are they know their budget ain't going to pass. Unless, of course, the NDP votes for it. They can get them to vote. And of course, the NDP probably doesn't want an election because, they need a leadership review as well. They've only got an interim leader, and he's not really prepared to take his party into another election. So they might just vote for the Liberals. But if they don't, well, there could be an election. There could be an election after they try to pass this joke of a budget, and they're really going out of their way to try to cook the books ahead of time, right? And everybody's telling them, bottom line is the bottom line. I don't care how many flowery columns you put into it. We know what the bottom line is. And remember, these guys have increased a lot of spending since they got into power, especially when it comes to their consultants. Yes, what do they increase that spending by another 30%? And Canada keeps bleeding money out the door for foreign things. Oh, you got to give money for gender, climate, transitioning, whatever, in another country. Got to give some more money to the Aga Khan. Yeah, we gave some more money to that guy. Again, his charity. And meanwhile, 1 in 4 Canadians are going without food. But, we got money to burn. Prime Minister Mark Carney said Thursday his government is not considering hitting American goods with more retaliatory tariffs, even as trade war rages on, because there are signs that the bilateral talks on relief are headed in the right direction. Oh, by right direction, read Carney will make himself richer with his portfolio. Carney is facing pressure from some premiers like Ontario's Doug Ford and organized labor to take on U.S. President Donald Trump as he ramps up his tariffs on critical sectors, levies that have drawn jobs and investment away from Canada. Yes, well, I'm sorry, Fat Trudeau, I mean Doug Ford, but you've done just as much damage by supporting Carney and driving businesses out of the country and your province with your antics. What are you doing? You're you're like losing your mind. You know, Rob, your brother, he was a mensch. You're just a menace. You have to shame Grok in order to get anything close to realistic portrait of Carney or any other figure on the liberal left, it seems, says Blazing Catfer. I had a realistic portrait of distraught Mark Carney as the man wrestling Trump. Cease your liberal left political bias meddling. Yes. Yeah. I've always wondered about that. I actually was using Grok a couple of months ago. There was a discussion going on about Islam, and I knew what the answer was. I knew what the answer was because I'd read it in the book. So I was trying to get Grok to get the answer, and it just refused. It kept dancing around it in a far left way, right? Because its woke programmers would not allow it to say what I was trying to get it to say. And then finally, when I actually just out of my memory grabbed the statement out of that book and then quoted it to Grok, and then it suddenly found the reference and the book, and then still tried to manipulate the answer as if it was only mildly relevant. So yeah, Grok, like any other AI, um, they're only as good as their programmers. And here we are at the end. And wow, it's been a 45-minute episode. Well, outstanding. I'd like to thank all of you who've actually come to this show and if you actually stayed to the end, I really appreciate that as well. I'm trying to get a fade in going. There we go. There's a fade. And of course, having the desktop audio on for the first half with a lot of echo probably didn't help. But still, we're 6 months later, and I'm still doing some adjustments on doing this weekly broadcast. Once again, big thanks to Blazing Catfer for posting this on his site. And come on over to the channel, watch some of the other videos, and watch our live streams. And subscribe, like, follow, all that other jazz. And we will see you next time. And let's do the outro. See if I can get this right here. Bye-bye.